Tensions with China, U.S. deploys military to Subic Bay. Subic Bay is back in play as the Philippines weighs U.S. security guarantees against China's economic leverage and military pressure, a high-stakes balancing act between survival and prosperity. This month, multiple media outlets reported that the U.S. Navy plans to establish a military storage facility in the Philippines Subic Bay by September 2026, according to lease documents. The U.S. has requested proposals for a 5-year lease on a 25,000 square meter climate-controlled warehouse and maintenance shop within the Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority Freeport area, located within 16 kilometers of the existing U.S. Marine Corps prepositioning program site. The facility, which reportedly will not be used to stockpile munitions, is designed for the storage and maintenance of vehicles and equipment and will accommodate up to 60 personnel. The move follows a smaller April solicitation and marks one of the most significant U.S. developments in Subic Bay since U.S. bases were closed in the 1990s, when Subic was converted into a special economic zone. Aside from that U.S. facility, U.S. and Philippine officials have greenlit a separate munitions plant, touted as the world's largest weapons manufacturing hub, which is intended to boost Philippine defense self-reliance and U.S. forward posture. Subic Bay, once one of the largest U.S. naval hubs in Asia, has regained prominence amid tensions in the South China Sea and Taiwan Strait. The U.S. and the Philippines are expanding defense cooperation under the 2014 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, which now covers hundreds of activities annually, and are jointly modernizing facilities across the Philippines. Philippine Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro has signaled openness to further U.S. military investments, framing them as opportunities to enhance resilience, create employment, and facilitate technology transfer. Subic Bay's revival highlights the Philippines' dual role as a forward logistics hub in an intensifying superpower rivalry and a small power balancing security from the U.S. with economic ties to China. The Philippines is a critical node of the U.S. First Island Chain strategy, in which the U.S. aims to contain China through Japan, Taiwan, and the Philippines. Sustaining U.S. combat power in contested environments requires a fundamental rethink of logistics. Jocelyn Fleming and other writers emphasized in a March 2024 RAND report that as the U.S. Navy transitions to distributed maritime operations, DMO, adversaries' ability to target transportation hubs could render traditional resupply methods untenable. Furthermore, Samuel Weiniger warns in a December 2022 Proceedings article that, in the event of a possible Taiwan contingency, China would likely target U.S. Navy resupply vessels and depots across the Indo-Pacific, exploiting the asymmetry of operating in its backyard while forcing the U.S. to sustain forces from afar. Christopher Salerno reinforced the point in a September 2025 Military Review article. Arguing that without a shift to distributed systems, U.S. credibility would erode as all its service concepts depend on dispersed operations. Zeroing in on the Philippines' role in U.S. strategy, Michael Mazar and others note in a June 2025 RAND report that the country's location along key intratheater lift routes makes it an obvious candidate for forward sustainment nodes. Regarding the selection of Subic as a critical munitions plant, the U.S. Defense Appropriations Act for 2026 highlights the absence of a forward-positioned ammunition production facility in the Indo-Pacific, despite multiple bipartisan congressional directives to create one. The act states that the facility would enable quick resupply and sustainment during a high-end conflict, especially in a Taiwan contingency, while also mitigating risks associated with lengthy logistics routes and contested maritime regions. Additionally, it aims to decrease reliance on stockpiles located in the U.S. mainland and trans-Pacific supply routes. Christopher Salano reinforced the point in a September 2025 Military Review article, arguing that without a shift to distributed systems, U.S. credibility would erode as all its service concepts depend on dispersed operations. Zeroing in on the Philippines' role in U.S. strategy, Michael Mazar and others note in a June 2025 RAND report that the country's location along key intra-theater lift routes makes it an obvious candidate for forward sustainment nodes. Regarding the selection of Subic as a critical munitions plant, the U.S. Defense Appropriations Act for 2026 highlights the absence of a forward-positioned ammunition production facility in the Indo-Pacific despite multiple bipartisan congressional directives to create one.